in her head. A buzz. White noise. Notes on a page, an orchestra tuning up did the same thing. She was on her own in the shop. Her shop. 4:30 on a November Tuesday. So quiet she'd sent Laura out to the post office. One of Bridget's regulars from across the county had phoned for a specific dress, and though Bridget hadn't really got into selling online because she was wary and stood resolute in the face of Laura's hints and pleas, they boxed it up between them as a favour, and off Laura had gone, sailing down the darkening street, bearing the box high. Close to £1,000's worth of dress. Bridget didn't want that kind of stock out for 2 weeks to someone she didn't know, only to come back again, never mind getting lost in the post. That was the wariness she expressed to Laura anyway. Just like when she got up at 2 a.m. and did her stretches in the living room because she couldn't sleep. She told Matt she was fretting over the VAT. Who didn't wake in the middle of the night these days? If it wasn't recession, it was people out rioting. Matt would reach out a hand to her when she climbed back in, resting it on her until eventually she would get back to sleep. It wasn't the VAT, though. It wasn't fretting about stock getting lost in the post. She couldn't say to Laura, after all, I don't want people to find me on the internet. She couldn't say, I don't want people looking at pictures of me. It's not worrying, either. It's terror. Laura would think there was something wrong with her. It was a relief, sometimes, to have Laura out of the shop. 10 years younger, so certain of everything, so pink and white, so blonde and pretty. So pregnant, it set Bridget's nerves jangling. Though Laura had told her babies were always late in her family, and she wanted to work. Needed the money, didn't we all? Perhaps they could close up early. Perhaps Bridget could send Laura straight home when she got back from the post. She would take her time anyway. She'd dawdle and look in baby shops and buy herself a chocolate flapjack and pat her belly, anxious and satisfied at once. Bridget remembered that feeling. She'd like to jump to a month ahead, and Laura sitting up in hospital with the baby safely in her arms, and Nick, the sainted husband, at her shoulder. She turned her back to the window and surveyed the shop. Home early? Why not? Last night had been a late one, after all. Monday the shop was closed, but she'd been in anyway, on her hands and knees, repainting the old wooden floor, another layer of cream eggshell, and all the stock swathed in dust sheets, along with the velvet chair, the sofa for husbands, the mirrored cube for the newspaper to sit on perfectly centred. Laura had once called her OCD, in an unguarded moment, for her straightening of rails and scrupulous repainting of the floor once every 6 months, if it needed it or not. How many layers must there be by now? Bridget had laughed. She didn't really know what OCD was, but she was fairly sure it didn't cover what she had. Last night, Matt had picked her up without being asked, taking her hands in his, sore and cracked from the white spirit, put her bike in the back. The party dresses had all been hanging straight again, and the dust sheets folded and back under the rails in the stockroom. She'd hung up her coat and made the tea, though, because he'd been at work too, and it was only fair. She didn't want their little world falling down round their ears for lack of sausage and mash. Besides, pretty much the only time she saw Finn these days was when he heard the table being laid. It was normal. Everyone said so, although what would she know was normal? Bridget's teenage years were a blur. Her quiet, shy, kind husband and her big, soft son wouldn't have known her if you'd showed them a picture of 15-year-old Bridget O'Neill, standing with her huge eyes staring out, gawky and angular, all knobs and bones. Whereas she'd seen Matt, an old yellowed photograph of him, standing by his bike in glasses at that age, frowning with shyness, and had known it was him straight away. Something moved under the velvet chair in the back, and immediately Bridget was over there on her hands and knees. Moth. In November? She must be keeping it too warm in here. It fluttered, velvety. Bridget didn't like moths, and catching them was like trying to catch a bird, but it had to be done. Kill it? She didn't want to kill it. She had it between